So when you go to buy or sell a business, there are certain things that can commonly either kill the deal or add significant delay to actually closing on the transaction. And so I want to go over just a list of things that I've seen as some of the more common, what I call deal killers in M&A activity that I've seen over the years in my career. So let me share my screen. Okay, so what are some of the more common M&A deal killers? Misrepresentation, lack of upfront disclosure. So I had a deal with a large restaurant franchise. It was a over $100 million deal, and we were all the way probably about a week from closing, and some of the financials came out, and the monthly financials, and they were just not anywhere near what the projections were and everything that had been discussed up to that point. The due diligence, they had seen the prior financials and they were fine, but the more recent trends were nowhere near what they said they were going to be. And so when the actual financials came out and didn't match up, the deal fell through, even though it was like about a week from closing on a large transaction. Lawyers, yes, lawyers are deal killers. They can be. So it's very common, and you ask any M&A lawyer or anyone who does deals, and they will tell you that yes, the wrong type of lawyer in an M&A deal will delay or kill the deal, because someone brings in their buddy, somebody brings in their family attorney. Oh, he did a will for me, he can look this over. No, that the problem is they don't understand some of the structure, some of the language. Like, we, as an M&A attorney, my job is to try to make the deal close and protect my client as much as possible. Obviously, if there's major issues, yes, you don't want the deal to close, but we're there to try to make deals happen, not overly complicate things. So a lot of times lawyers who are not experienced in M&A will come in and they'll start renegotiating a signed term sheet. They'll over negotiate all kinds of areas of a purchase agreement and bring up issues that are really not that relevant and cause all kinds of concern and either delay or kill the deal. So when you do a deal, make sure you go to somebody who's done a fair number of business buying and selling, M&A lawyers, anyone who's done that more than a few times that can understand. Don't just go to your buddy just because they're a lawyer, or somebody who did your will, or someone who's a litigation attorney primarily, because they see things from a different perspective of potential lawsuits, and sometimes that just doesn't work for trying to close deals. Contracts, leases, licenses, things that need approval, whether it's a new owner coming in or to transfer a contract or a license to a new entity, legal structure, that can either delay or kill things. So for example, on a lease, if you're buying a business and it's in a leased property and the landlord doesn't want you in there as the new owner, they may not consent to assigning the lease or any personal guarantee associated with it to you. Also, court approvals, probate court, bankruptcy court, those can significantly delay because the courts have to approve the transaction. Usually those don't kill deals, as long as everyone knows it's going to take a little longer to close. Minority shareholders, this includes spouses as well, because in community property states like California and Texas, the spouse usually holds a community interest in ownership of the business. So they typically need to sign off on selling the business from the seller standpoint. So that can cause issues, as well as what's called dissenters' rights. Even if somebody holds a small percentage ownership and they don't agree to selling the business, that can cause all kinds of legal issues and delays. Non-competes and transition plans. A lot of times I'll see these come up where they've agreed to it in a term sheet or a letter of intent, a non-compete, or some type of transition plan. And then the seller, when it comes down to actually writing it up formally in a non-compete, all of a sudden they'll say, oh, wait a second, no, that's not really what I want to do. I still want to open a side business over here, and I can't do that. So that can throw a wrench in the deal. And a lot of, like, from a business broker standpoint, they think of, okay, let's close this deal. But you have to think about the transition plan and what's going to happen after closing to make sure everything is smooth in the transition. And a lot of those issues come up after you already have a term sheet or letter of intent, getting close to closing, and they're like, okay, well, what about transferring over all the accounts receivable and the vendor accounts and domain names and just all those little issues that come up in the transition, they need to be accounted for, or they can cause issues. Tax issues, obviously, those need to be looked at early on in the deal to make sure that the structure, whether it's an asset purchase, stock purchase, some type of merger, whether it causes any kind of tax complications or issues. Like, for example, if it terminates an S corporation election by entering into the transaction, that can have a certain adverse impact. Just a number of things need to be looked at. Funding, obviously, that's pretty straightforward. Whether the lender, the bank, approves any kind of loan, if there's an SBA loan or a conventional lender, sometimes there's additional timeframes to get them to sign off on anything. Also, somebody's supposed to put cash into a deal and something happens to where they actually don't have the cash. Emotions, this is actually a big one. And anyone who's done a significant number of deals, whether it's an M&A attorney, a broker, anyone, a banker, anyone involved in the deal will tell you that, yes, emotions play a huge role. You wouldn't think of as like a legal or technical issue, but someone's emotions, especially, it can be on the buyer, but the seller side, if they're selling their baby that they, grew to a certain size, it can be difficult for them. And transitioning out of that can sometimes be quite difficult. So emotions can be a huge issue that comes into play when it comes to closing deals. Hopefully you guys got something out of this, and feel free to contact me at any time. And thanks for watching.